So I want to make a video for you guys showing you the difference between some of the line out converters that you might find, especially for those of us that have Subaru cars that come with pretty horrible factory sound. And your thought is, how hard can it be to get a little bit better sound, or to add an amplifier and a subwoofer, or an amplifier going to some speakers? Well, this is one of the most accessible pieces that you'll find. It's the Scosche FAI-3A, and it's at Walmart for $18.88. This is the one they seem to market the most heavy, and when you think about that price, it really costs more than many other passive line-out converters. And $18.88 or $20 is almost half the cost of a decent single-DIN head unit, which will give you a strong 2.5 volts from an RCA pre-out. So this is reported to give you 0 to 2 volts from a factory head unit down to RCAs. But when you think about that cost again, I think I'd rather save up for a single head unit if that was my plan, which mine isn't. Now, thinking about the sound, this product gives you garbled, muddy bass. It puts out such a low level of voltage that you're always going to be fighting with your amp, trying to make changes, and your amp's really not going to be happy. In fact, it can even cause overheating. It's pretty impossible to level match, and it really will make you go crazy performing indefinite adjustments to try to get a clear sound. But it's not you. Rest assured, it's actually this line-out converter, because it puts out horrible distortion. Now, with regards to hooking it up, if you take a look, you have A1 through A8, and we have a couple different RCAs for right and left, front and then left and right rear. You're pretty much just going to use A1 through A4 if you're just putting it out through one channel. So here where it says common ground, factory amp, and line out, you have a little switch and you can choose which one you're going to use. I just used line out when I had tested it out. And I've tried it out in a number of cars, and I really wondered what was wrong. But also with regards to hooking it up, if you look, you can see little pots there. Actually, you can't see them. And in fact, that's exactly the problem. You can't see the pots to adjust the gain. Plus, it requires a really long, thin screwdriver like most of you may not have unless you work, in electronics. And even when I acquired one, once it was inside, you couldn't see the level it was at. You just had to kind of go on faith that you were in a little slot and then turn it all the way up. Also up here, you'll see the connectors for the wires. So the goal is to twist your wires up, put them inside, and then use these little screws to tighten them down. Well, that doesn't work, and they will be forever falling out. And if you can see that, let me see if you can get this. A5, there's actually no little screw terminal. So A5 is pretty much useless at this point, and that just fell out at random on its own will. Now, there are a couple of positives about this. One is the color. Another is the size of it. Also, if you can see here, it has little loops to where you can zip tie this thing up just about anywhere. It seems to just fit perfectly, whether it's under a seat or under the dash or whatever. It does have a nice ground attached. It's a nice solid ground. Once again, if you want to impress somebody with your knowledge of electronics, even though it's pretty limited if you buy this, as you can tell, this would be good for that. But I also wanted to show you another product, which this is an empty box for because I've already installed it. And this is the PAC SNI-35. Now, just looking at the package for this, they seem to be very proud of their product. And the manual also comes with less than par instructions for installing it. But it's actually pretty simple once you know how to do it. Now, I want to assure you that the difference between sound in this and little boxes in here that's in my car right now is worlds apart. In fact, it's actually laughable that this Scosche FAI-3A costs $20, and this one costs $9.99 at Walmart. But you have to order this one online. It's not something they sell in the store. But the quality you get is over twice as good. and the distortion levels are so low and you get such clean, rich bass that you're thinking for $10 that it's probably one of the best upgrades you can make. Once again, if you're either planning your system or if you don't have the money to spend in a double DIN unit, head unit, to get the best signal possible. So later in the video, I want to show you a surprise, and I think you'll be very happy with the other line-out converter that we have. Now, with regards to hooking up a line-out converter to your Subaru, most people have trouble with this, and one of the biggest problems with people trying to hook these up is just not having the positive and negatives hooked up right. So the way you do it, and I'm just going to use this as an example, even though I encourage you to strongly encourage you to avoid this, is once again we have A1 through A4. And if you notice here, there's positive, negative, positive, negative. So if you take off the kick panel on your, what I did is, because it was the easiest access, the right front speaker, you take out the kick panel, you'll find a bunch of wires, and you'll peel back the electrical tape that's covering them up. I just cut a little slit in it. And then you'll need to locate the wires for your speaker out of all that little bunch. So your right front speaker positive is going to be a red and yellow wire, and then your right front speaker negative is going to be a white and black wire. So you're going to find those two, a red and yellow and a white and black. And then what you'll do is take some T-taps, which is a simple way to do it. Just take some T-taps and make sure you get a nice clean connection to each one. And all line-out converters are going to have, these positive and negatives for each channel, which is going to go to the RCA. And what you'll do is, split the two wires coming from the positive and then split the two wires coming from the negative. So, if you get a normal length of speaker wire, you'll be able to separate the positive and negative. And then the one that's connected to, in this case, the positive, which will be the red and yellow, you'll have that split, and then you'll put it here to the positive, and then put the other one to the positive. So in this case, one from the red and yellow would go to A1, and the other from the red and yellow would go to A3. And then with the white and black, you'll do the negative to A2, and the other negative to A4. And the idea behind this, excuse me, my voice is going. The idea behind this is that while sometimes it's so easy when you're hooking up RCAs because you just, plug them in and run them to the other end and just plug them in, is that each one of these has a positive and negative. So as long as you have a positive and negative going to each particular terminal here, then you will get an even sound. It won't be biased towards one side or the other. And with the proper line-out converter, such as this pack one we have up here, if you do it that way, you will get a nice rich sound, a clean sound, and it'll give your amplifier all the signal it needs, positive and negative channels from both RCAs. So you're going to have a positive and negative on this side and a positive and negative on this side, going to your RCAs, going to your amplifier, and then your amp will be able to, of course, convert that, and you'll get a nice sound. So that's basically how to hook it up to your Subaru factory stereo. Now, the reason that you don't want to do it with the rear is because of what many manufacturers have put in, where as you fade to the rear, they try to give you more bass. But another thing is that there's not actually that strong of a signal or that much power going to the rear speakers. The rears are just kind of like fill. So you really want to hook up to where you're getting the full range signal, which is going to be the front speakers in your average car with the factory stereo.